The last actor we need to create for the player to interact with to complete all the gameplay planned out in the LDD is a mechanical switch that we're going to use as a means of the player operating the bridge. They press the switch and the bridge extends. So I've created a small change to the block out from the previous course. I've included this little staging area here, I guess, to have that moment. It points us directly at the bridge so we can see when we interact with the bridge. The bridge will move later on and we'll actually be aware of the results of our actions during gameplay. So let's get started building the mechanical switch. So to create our BP switch here, let's start again with making a child class of the BP interactive parent. We'll name it BPC switch. Let's open this up. And we need to add a mesh component to represent the switch. We'll just use a cylinder here. Choose the cylinder as the shape. Now it's much too big. I'll just scale it down here. It'll still be a little big, but it'll make more sense for a switch that your hand might operate. I'll just make this 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. For the reason we're using this here, I'm going to set this to red. Red indicating that maybe the power's off. So when you first encounter the switch near the bridge, the red usually means off, green means go. Next, I'm going to go into the event graph, and we're not going to use these events again, so I'll delete these. And I'll override the event, start events on interact. And we're still going to do a typical check for locked, that concept of being locked. Locked in this case would mean the power is off, and the switch won't actually really do anything we want it to do. So if it's locked, we're going to grab the text render component for our UI. We're going to set the text, as we always do, to whatever the lock text variable says. And if it's not locked and the power's on, we only want this to run once. The idea being that you press the button and it's lost, that's the end of its functionality, then it will eventually move the bridge or whatever else we wanted it to do. So we're going to do a do once node there, so it doesn't do anything more than that. This is pressed, we want it to animate the button. So we're going to add a timeline here, some basic timeline operation. And we're going to grab a reference to the mesh for our button. We're going to set the relative location. Just nudge it up and down like a button that was depressed and then sprang back into its original location. So from there, let's make some room for a lerp node. Lerp vector, we'll just do that. It'll start at 0 and it'll be depressed -5 on the z-axis. I'll just make a simple track here. Do a float track. Just call it the driver of everything. And we'll make this pretty short because a button press is pretty short. Here we go. And we'll just do 3 points here, up, down, up. Value of this will be 1. Value of this will make 0.3 at the end. And this will be 0. And then we'll just make these, I'll make them all user curves so it has a nice general flow to it. And we'll just connect the timeline to the alpha of the lerp. Next, we need to add our override for the event unlock. So what happens when this is unlocked? Well, we set is locked to false. And also, we're going to change the material on this mesh so that it then looks green and it looks like the power's been restored to the player. At least it conveys that in a really basic sense. And we'll just call this green. And one way we can do, like say we wanted to use this button elsewhere in the level, we could do a little bit of work in the construction script as well. So we could do a quick check for is locked. And then I'm just going to grab my node here. Make my life easier, I'll paste it here. So if it's locked, it's red. Make sure that's red. If it's unlocked, it's green. And lastly, I'll just connect these two set material nodes to the isLocked branch check. Now let's see how we can set up the instance of this in our sort of blockout console here, our control console. So say I want to make this like almost look like it's embedded in the console there. And I'm just going to grab interact text. And because say we want this to be kind of a universally available switch that we could use for other applications, other gameplay in their level, we'll keep the inspect as the neutral first message to the player, but then let's maybe we can change some of the other text variables here. So in other words, lock could say, just to make it really clear, it could say bridge power off. And then when it's unlocked, it means the bridge power is on and you can move the bridge. So we could say operate bridge. Lastly, I just want to make sure that this is off by default. So locked represents off. So when I click locked, we see the color changes to red, which is what we want. When it's unchecked, it's green. Now we can test our interactive switch. So when I approach it, it says inspect. I hit interact and it's off. So it says bridge power off. So ultimately, other events in the level, presumably when the gear machine is operational, will change the state of this. So when I move forward, it'll eventually be green and we'll be able to use it